So we've got all our names. Are we in the right? Seem to be. Okay, great. Thank you very much. We can start. Now, we're here ultimately talking about trust. When I started off talking about who MEF is, what we do, I mentioned trust. Would someone like to start us off on this panel, actually to talk about what trust really means? Go for it. What is trust?
Thank you, James. Does it work? Number 2? Okay, hi. Thanks, James,
Hello.
for letting me kick it off. It's a big responsibility, so let me try. Trust on the messaging channel is basically building the user and the content confidence to use the channel. The trust can be, it can be many-fold. It can be based on the security aspects of the message. It could also be based on the commercial aspects of the message. See, eventually, messaging channel is not a single channel. We're looking at SMS A2P, which is the biggest, like we saw in the presentation. But then we have a lot of challenges as well. We all know that the companies today invest in customer data platforms, so they have a visibility across different messaging channels. They see the effectiveness and efficiency of these messaging channels, the conversion rates, the commercial aspects, and that goes a long way in defining the future of each of these messaging channels. So basically, trust for me is a function of conversion and commercial success of a communication channel.
Okay. Hopefully all the mics will work, but sorry, let me get Alike. Why, if I'm a consumer and I'm receiving a message, why is trust important to me?
Thanks, James. By the way, it's Alik.
Thank you. Sorry, Alik.
Just to add to what Vipul mentioned earlier, first of all, I think for trust to be established in business messaging, you first need a clear sender, and then you need simple, simplified, concise communication. If you can, and then brands have seen this, right? If you've established trust, you get a massive uptake in sales, repeat purchases, which means decreased spends in marketing. So there's a positive upside towards going with trust.
Okay, thank you. Now, trust, is it the same? Prabhat, is trust going to be the same? We're talking about India, obviously, and one country, but I do want to talk about the rest of the world a little bit as well. Is trust, is it going to be the same for everyone? And actually here in India, I keep forgetting it's so vast, and people have joined us coming from Gurgaon, they've come from Delhi, so people have flown 2.5 hours, and for me, if I flew 2.5, 3 hours from my home city of Leeds, I'd have flown over probably 6, 7 or 8 countries just going east. It's vast. Is trust, do you think, does it mean the same thing for everyone in India or around the world? What factors can change that perception of trust?
Thanks, James. So before getting into business communication and the trust, let us first define what is trust from a human angle. Human, it's the emotions, right? Trust. Someone is good to me. Someone is honest. Someone is sincere. Someone, what they are committing is they are fulfilling their commitment. That is trust, right? So now it's convert to a business communication, whether it's in India or outside India. People can start trusting the brand, the enterprises, only when they feel that the communication, the requirement, the need and want of mine is being fulfilled what they have promised. Now coming back to how do we do that? So in SURF, in our organization, we are trying to develop one of the product called consent management and authentication, which talk about if customer wants to have a message or any communication, you must take a consent from the customer. What time? You have to take the preference. What time they want to receive, which channel they want to receive. Second part to this trust is, let's say I have a problem with particular enterprise in terms of brand if I have communicated to their customer care department, do they know me? That's where the second question comes. Know your customer is not about only their PAN card number or Aadhaar card number or identifying them. Know your customer is all about how much detail you know. How much do you know the purchase behavior, what they have bought from you, when they have bought for you, what kind of problem they are facing, and then addressing it. That's how you build the trust. So for me, whether it's in India or outside India, almost is the same. Maybe it could be a variation of 5% or 2%, but it's the same.
Okay. Oh, go on ahead. You're jumping in. Paul Ornish hasn't had a chance, but go on. Keen, so go for it.
Sorry, just one aspect on that to add on. Actually, India is a slightly more tricky market than some of the other markets would be. And I mean, to state that, let me present some demographics. So in India, 15 to 64, that age group constitute to almost 68% of our population, which means there is a drive to adapt to new technology, to be takers of messaging or business messaging as a service. At the same time, 69% of our population is rural, which means the sentiments play a very, very important role, and the community experience plays a very, very important role there. So a single incident of phishing could put you back on the messaging landscape by a far larger time than, you know, in some of the more developed countries where it is not, I mean, it is not the case. So I think that plays a very, very important emotional role. I mean, like Prabhat was saying as well. I mean, there is an emotional aspect to it, which is very, very strong in India because of this big proportion of rural population.
Okay, a very good point. Another statistic I heard is the average age, I think, here in India is 27, with 1.3 billion people and 13 languages and 600 dialects. So that all adds to the mix. Now, Ornish, bringing you into here. You've heard from the rest of our speakers here. Before I ask you a question, anything further to add at this point?
Just I just want to summarize the discussion at this point of time because. Hello. Yeah. So most of the points has been covered in the trust, but I just want to summarize it a little bit and make the points very clear. The trust directly proportional to the brand reputation what you have in the business communication. So brand, if you establish the brand reputation, the perception of your brand, the trust comes automatically. It's a part of it. The second point is the communication part, what Alec has just mentioned. The moment you create a communication, very transparent communication with the consumer on the three factors of identification, the verification and authorization of the means the onboarding process seamless, it brings trust to that customer. And the third, which is most important, which Vipul just touched upon, is the data trust. This is the security and the privacy which they perceive that somebody is taking care of. You are not letting them out without any cause to someone for your benefit. And that has actually resulted a bad reputation of SMS in the first part of, some years ago in India. So that's the data trust is the third and most critical part for any business communication. So there are 3 points which brand, reputation, the simplicity of communication, and registering the entire process of authentication, registration, the verification process. And the third is the data trust, which is these are the 3 factors if any company takes care of, gets a better trust with the consumer.
Thank you. Very, very good points there. And I'm being a very bad moderator and I shouldn't have an opinion, but I do. So I'm going to voice it. I think the psychological aspect is also very important. I don't know, again, I've just arrived and landed in India, so I apologize, I don't know what it's like here in India. But certainly talking from the UK and other countries heading over in my direction, the average person, whether it be using Facebook or other social media channels, Facebook and Instagram I think of in particular, Facebook in particular, people have no problem putting out there all their personal information, sharing all the details of their life. They're giving everything away. But the moment, heaven forbid, a bank or any other, a delivery company steps out of line and sends them one perceived message which is perceived as spam, or I didn't like the content, or it's irrelevant for me, then there's a very, very strong reaction from them. Why did I receive this? I didn't sign up for this, or something like that. So I think there's this psychology at play, and the human element. No amount of technology, doesn't matter which of your companies it comes from, can play for that. Now, again, I don't know much about the Indian market, but Alik, do you have this issue here in India with the average subscriber oversharing potentially in some areas?
Yeah, so that's true, James. We do share a lot of information. Coming back to your point, and you of course mentioned about blockchain a bit earlier as well, right? So what we have seen in our company, and of course this rides on the consent management part that you mentioned as well. Yes, we put our information out there in the public, but people are concerned when the brand reaches out to them with personally identifiable information. And the reasoning here is that I have not opted in for you to message me. That's one. But then, and since this is all about trust, right? So even with the best implementation of DLT in India, right? Even if you have not given an opt-in, let's take an example of you not having opted in for business communication. Brand messages are still finding their way in your box, right? International messages are coming in as domestic messages. OTP messages are coming with invalid templates, right? So that's kind of hurting trust. That's kind of creating a bad impact for the brand. We've seen the ecosystem. There are some caller ID application apps as well who have ventured in the space of business communication. The whole concept is about controlling spam. And when you sign up, you share your details with them, you send, you upload your photograph, you upload your first name, last name. And then all of a sudden, without consent, third-party brands are messaging you with that name, right? So that's happening all the time. And then that comes up with the question, right? Is there data breach? Is your data, your personal information really secure? There are a lot of questions. But yes, the bottom line is people share, but if brands message them, then it's pretty clear. Have I given you consent? Yes or no?
Thank you very much. Prabhat, a question for you. Obviously, we've got the Telecom Skills Council here. We've got MEF. It's all about education and learning. We talked about, excellent statistic about the massive rural population here within India. So education is absolutely central to development. So education and connectivity are two things which really foster development globally. How do you go about here in India, given the vast geographical spread, all the languages, the huge number of people, but educating people out there about what is safe and what isn't safe when it comes to messaging, so that they're not giving away, for example, information when it comes to phishing? How do we do that? It's a tough question, I know.
Yeah, it's a very difficult also, not terms of questions, but also answering it. We are talking about 1 billion plus population with, I mean, how many languages even we don't know, right? But coming to the educational part, it's an ongoing process. Now let's talk about DLT implementation. This is one of the way the industry or policymakers are trying to address it. But the main function of addressing was that curbing the spam. A customer who does not have given the consent, right, you are not supposed to send. But building trust is not about giving consent. Building trust is that you have to supposed to give a particular message which I want. I have given a consent, let's say to a ABC brand, and they have 10 products, and they keep sending me all kinds, because I have given a consent to send me a message. That's not how you build a trust. You build a trust when you know me, and what I want, and what time I want. For that, you have to do a lot of data crunching of your customer. You have to use good analytical tools.
Why not just ask them?
Yeah, you can ask
I
them.
think precious few
Yeah.
actually ask their customers
Yes.
what type of content, when.
Yeah, exactly. And when and what time, till what time. I mean, you can't just, I have given you a consent for 1 year, you keep sending a message. Even I have bought your product, right? You have to open up good channels, educate them, this is how you can approach us. You can, give consent or maybe delist yourself. So this is a part of not only one or two department, for that matter, a policy maker, but each and every enterprise responsibility is to educate their customers. It is the responsibility of everyone in the ecosystem, including telecom operators, including enterprises, including aggregators, that you have to follow to create trust. And once you create a trust, right, I mean, you can build big businesses out of it. And once you, if you do not have that trust, you lose out.
Very, very good point. And you raised, your last comment there was particularly important for me from this perspective, in that everyone has a role to play. Within MEF, I run a very specific group, Banking Fraud South Africa. So we're looking at the whole area of banking fraud in South Africa. South Africa was famous for fraud of all different types, but particularly banking fraud. And of course, the bearer of many types of threat was and still to a degree is SMS in particular, so banking fraud. And you had a situation where the banks were blaming the operators were blaming the banks, and the blame game does not help anybody at all. So Vipul, I know Orange ultimately a very, very large operator group around the world, but do you think mobile operators as a whole are doing enough work for their subscribers to really protect them from threats?
Okay, again, James, two aspects to this. One, as a community which is engaged on messaging, we are trying to do our best. I mean, so we have a 360-degree view to security, which encompasses all the three lines of product. So we take care of DDoS and network protection on data. We take care of bypass and fraud like fast, spam, etc. on voice. And then on messaging, we try to address all the four areas: identity threat, network, commercial, and data theft. So we try to address all these, and we try to not just for our own opcos in Africa and Europe, but even for third-party mobile operators, we try to make them aware of these four areas when it comes to messaging of fraud, and we try to support them in fighting fraud. Another thing when it comes to messaging channels is we try to educate them, I keep saying it again, but on the commercial aspect of it, because that is a very important aspect. I mean, if you make something disproportionate to the value, then one, you're attracting a lot more people to come in with the vested interest, which makes the demand for managing fraud even bigger. So we try to educate them on that, and that has been the Orange policy. I mean, to educate mobile operators and to work with them closely in terms of technically as well as commercially to manage the fraud.
Thank you very much. So one area we haven't touched upon at all is the role of a regulator, and a good regulator. Anish, in your estimation, your experience here in India, how good have the regulator been in understanding the issue, bringing in solutions and everything like that? Did it take a lot of time, or did they see, okay, we've got a massive spam problem here, let's do something, let's work together? Because I know, looking around the world in many, many different areas, sometimes when a regulator is brought into play and comes out, they may not have the correct understanding of A to P. They may understand very well the world of person to person, but A to P is a very, very different beast. What's been your experience here in India, your opinion?
I think our regulator are little more advanced in this area. There are two parts to the regulation. One part is about creating the policy and policy framework. And the other part is to implementation part. For creating the policy framework, the thought processes are very nice and nicely drafted right from the beginning itself to protect customers' interest from spam, etc., etc. But when it went to implementation, the technology used were not up to the mark. It went through a process of scrubbing the data, but the scrubbing data had a lot of leakages, and it actually created a lot of misuse of the data. Intention was the same, the policies were the same, now got implemented through DLT platform, which protects the consumer interest as well as creates a transparency among the ecosystem partners, whether it's a telemarketer, whether it's a operator, whether it's a regulator, or whether it's a consumer per se. It creates a info way whereby you can account for the misuse. The accountability was the one which was the missing link. Traceability of the misuse was missing link, which is very much possible through this new technology. And once you create a deterrent much higher, it automatically drops down. This DLT platform is creating, because of the transparency, a deterrent with the penalties that these practices comes down and came down heavily.
So the regulator here has teeth, and they actually use them. And it's a rapid process, because I know, talking from the UK experience, even when a regulator sees big SIM farm uses, shutting those things down can be so difficult, and actually taking them to court and getting a fine paid, wow, that's a whole different ballgame. But here it's a very different situation.
Yeah, because there are operators taken into the confidence for creating the technology platform, implementing it, and then rolling it out. There are still some blocks, like consent management block is still missing, complaint management block is still missing in the entire chain of things. The moment it comes in, probably it will be a foolproof system for the customers.
James,
Yeah,
just
go
to
ahead.
add,
Please go
this,
ahead.
and to answer your South African example and UK example. You see, regulator role is very specific to particular domain. For example, on a TRI is an Indian regulator for telecom operators. Now, when we are talking about frauds, right, which is happening on two sides. One is on the banking side, which is a banking customer, which is regulated by the RBI. There's a different regulator, right? On the insurance side, there is RDA, who does not understand the telecom network problems, right? So all these three, let's say I'm just giving an example of banking, insurance, and telecom operators. So there are three regulators, which is working independently. They are not looking into the problem of other domain. So all these regulator has to come to one place to address one issue, which is consumer, because consumer is one. So banking customers, consumer is banking customer as well as telecom customer and the insurance customer, right? So they are addressing independently. That's where the issue is. If it has to be addressed,
It's that collaboration. I'd like to
Yeah.
say MEF is the answer. Because we're neutral.
Yes.
I'm not joking. This is exactly what we do for South Africa. And in the US, MEF runs the 10-digit long code program, 10DLC. It's actually MEF runs that. So we've got this program for the operators, and very soon I'll be looking after the actual aggregator side of things in the US for 10DLC. So it's having that neutral party that can bring the people together to speak, because you've got to speak about the issues and not just lay the blame. So, the points, Alik, how important is, you talked about commercial, Vipul, but how about commercial models, the actual price of something? How does that impact trust? So I'm talking particularly here the price of SMS.
See, as a company, we've always tried to work with the ecosystem and make it profitable for all parties concerned, be it aggregators or operators as well. That's the role we've played. And adding to the point that Vipul mentioned about commercialization and others having vested interests, So the ecosystem in India as such is very complex. With the smartphones coming into the picture, you have messaging apps that are also capable of IP messaging that can spoof a message to look like a regular message, right? And that leads to loss of monetization for everyone in the ecosystem. And then, of course, the regulator also doesn't have much visibility on all of this, right? It's unfortunate that we've also come across customers these days demanding for these solutions, right? And when you do this, you essentially compromise on quality, you compromise on brand integrity, and it's just cutting prices. So there has to be some framework in place as well, some guideline in place, maybe MEF can play a role in this, to bring this ecosystem together. And hey, if it works, if there's proper consent in place, then I think it could be another business messaging channel. But at the same time, we have to ensure that it's a healthy market for all players involved.
Vipul, going on the commercial model side of things, thinking about SMS, and if SMS is priced too high, and let's say SMS is a trusted channel here in India, if the pricing goes sky high, surely people are going to be forced to look for alternative channels that may not be as trusted. So how big a role is the actual commercial model of a particular channel?
You're right. I mean, as the commercials keep increasing, see, we have to see how the usage has grown for SMS. Sometime back, to authenticate, you used to have an email, click on the link and move on. From that, it moved to the situation where you can do it online, you forget your password, you just put an OTP, you sign on. Because SMS was really, really cheap. The cost was next to nothing, and OTTs were more than happy to improve the customer service by giving that as a service. And suddenly in some markets, I mean not India, but around India, I mean if I look at Sri Lanka, you've increased the cost to 12 cents per message. Is it sustainable? I mean, I don't know. And in fact, that is the reason while a lot of OTTs 2 years back used to ask for quality routes, they ask for cheap routes now. So, you know, the discussion point, like you said, is changing. I mean, it's no longer that I need the best quality, the highest conversion rate. It is I need the most optimal channel. We have the statistics in the presentation before said about the increase in WhatsApp and Line, etc., other channels. What we didn't see is probably that Apple is starting business messaging as well. And for all the Apple users, at least for the OTP, it may have a major impact as well. I mean, today when you get an OTP, do you really see what the sender ID is? Or do you really see, what the message template is? No, you just, the phone prompts you to put the OTP. You don't even look at the message. You put the OTP and that's the end of it.
And that goes back to what I was talking about at the beginning. So is actually trust important? Because all you care about is the number right there and then. You don't actually look who sent it or the route to you.
Correct. So there are multiple markets. I mean, when it is banking, yes, the sender ID and the template of the message is important. OTP, because I'm logging in, yes, it may not be important. For marketing, it's a different ball game. I mean, I went and bought an ice cream doesn't mean I consented for you to send me messages. So, I mean, all the three segments are very different and have different, different challenges and commercial realities. So while banking, insurance, finance may continue to pay for SMS A2P, OTP may move to different channels because, nobody really cares. I mean, I don't look at the message. A lot of people other don't. Marketing, again, I mean, like I said earlier, there are customer data platform which lists different channels. So people would be free to spread across different channels. Now, this is where the role comes in. I mean, we see that the growth on SMS is going to be exponential. Whether, you want to slaughter the hen that lays a golden egg today or whether you want to feed it and keep it growing is a choice that, we as an industry need to make with MEF support, of course. And if we try to be prudent and work with integrity, I think we should be able to see the industry grow, but we have to be prudent on how we price the service.
Yeah, sustainability, genuine sustainability. So, Ornish, now we're coming to the end of my panel, because I'm just going to draw back. We haven't had 45 minutes together. If you think it's 45 minutes, it isn't. It's a little bit less. But I just want to draw back a bit of time for the rest of the day because we totally ate into our buffer earlier on. But I'd like to end up with this, and do you know what, I've just thought I actually haven't even given the opportunities for these chaps to introduce themselves or their companies, but I think GTS Tech Labs, just very, very quickly, what do Tech Labs do?
GTS Tech Lab is a product market, is a product company working very closely with regulator and telcos, working in 3 domains. One is revenue management, fraud detection, and the customer experience. And these products are all led by our experience into data analytics.
Great, thank you very much. Vipul, Orange, what your part of Orange does?
Okay, so I belong to a part of Orange which is into wholesale. So International Carriers is the name of the team. So we take care of business with carriers and OTTs across all the lines of product, which is data, including IP, submarine cables, etc., voice, and mobile services, which not only includes messaging, but also other things like IPX, signaling, the move to 5G, 3G sunsets in some market, etc.
I told you I was a bad moderator. I didn't even ask the chaps to introduce themselves. Alik, have your moment. If you could explain Route Mobile, what you do and what you do individually as well. Because you were the first, I think, big unicorn valued over $1 billion in the world of messaging ever in India. So congratulations for that.
Thanks, James. So Route Mobile, it's been in the space for about 18 years now. As you said, we played a massive role in bringing in eyeballs into the Indian ecosystem ever since our successful IPO. As a company, it's always been customer first, communication solutions. Started with SMS, diversified, firewalls, a lot of businesses all over the world, working closely with operators. And over the last couple of years, it's been an omni-channel portfolio. So we don't have a bias towards A2P as such, though it's the massive portfolio for us. But then we are equally vested in other business channels like WhatsApp. And we are also into the identity space, mobile identity services, mobile verification, and so on. So that's what we do.
Prabhat, please. Surf.
Yeah, so Ashutosh Agrawal is already introduced. Surf is a enterprise arm of GTS. Recently, we have an interest in developing customer experience and customer engagement products along with authentication and identification. And that's what we are trying to do in India and globally.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to end up this panel now very simply. I'm going to ask you the current situation today, out of 10, 10 being superb. You're a role model for the whole world. You don't need to do anything else. You can relax and all go on holiday to Goa. And for weeks on end, not 3 nights like the GTS team did to celebrate their 10th anniversary, but you can go on holiday for weeks, relax. How has the industry done in terms of 1 to 10, 1 being terrible, 10 being supremely amazing, nothing else to do, in terms of building trust with the subscribers? 1 to 10.
It all depends on the channel what you pick up. If you look at the SMS channel, I think I will rate them 7. Because of implementation of DLT platform by all the operators in India. But of course, the other channels are still to be watched for. Whether it's RCS is still not part of the DLT, the WhatsApp is not part of DLT.
Actually, that's a good point. We're going to be talking about RCS in the rich messaging session. And it came up actually within a working group meeting in MEF a couple of weeks ago. James, you haven't talked about spam in RCS.
Yeah. So.
And from the P2P side of things, that's going to become a bigger, more growing factor.
So, yeah, technology is catching faster than the regulation.
Yeah. Thank you. Vipul, same to you.
I agree with Avnish. I would rate in the Indian scenario 8 as well, because I mean we've seen the worst days. We've seen time when it was totally trust was non-existent. We had far too much spam than we could manage. So from that to now, yes, we do see a big improvement. I would definitely go with it.
Okay, nice. So we've got some nice numbers, and when I ask this in different other countries and other other international events, that number is less. So that's a really strong answer. Alik, do you agree? 8?
So I'll split this again, like Avnish. So if it's channels like RCS and WhatsApp, I'll probably say 9. We've been one of the first players for RCS in India, and we've gone through the phase of a lot of spam and stuff. But then we've worked closely with all the players in this ecosystem, Avnir, Google, and so on. And with the kind of policies and opt-in mechanisms and structures in place, it's become way more trustful for brands and their end users. If it's SMS, again, because we have visibility via our firewalls, we see a lot of leakage. So I would peg A2P SMS at about 7.
What do you think?
Oh, you're asking me. Okay. So globally, I would put it, again, I'm thinking of SMS, I would put it as a 6. There are some countries, I know I'm bad here because I know we shouldn't be playing the blame game and blaming any particular stakeholders, but what scares me, it doesn't surprise me, it scares me, is that from the hundreds of mobile operators around the world, there are still so many that don't have a proper, fully functioning, smart, if you want to call it, SMS firewall and a separate SS7 signaling firewall. For me, every mobile operator, it should be just a tick box. Check, SMS firewall, really good managed service. Whether you get that from GTS, whether you get that from Route Mobile, whether you get that from Tanla, or any of the companies in this room, irrelevant. Get one, have that, but have the managed service, because mobile operators are expert at providing services to us subscribers. But when it comes to this A2P business side of things, they don't have the years of experience companies here in this room have. So this is where the partnership comes in. So I'd say globally, 6 out of 10, probably a C, plenty more studying to do.
I'll have a different view.
I'm talking globally because I don't know India so well.
Yeah, so I will quote for India. My number will be around 3. And if the DLT is implemented then completely, then it could move to 5 or 6. The way, I've seen this industry for almost 18 years, right? I used to go and teach people, this is how you send SMS, right? And this is how it is used. I have seen all phases of SMS, the spamming, the route, everything, you know, still the ILDO pictures, you know, how people are misusing the service, how consumers are frustrated, right? But they don't have any option because you can't delete that inbox, right? But if they've given a chance that can you delete the inbox, then we will see whether it's 3 or 5 or 8. That's where the trust is, right? Now, WhatsApp can be deleted immediately if somebody is spamming it. Viber can be deleted, right? Because it's a control of a customer, right? Right now, that is not in a control of a customer. So sending them any messages or spamming them and asking whether there's a trust or not, somebody is working towards trust or not, it's the question mark. So that's the reason I'll give 3.
That's a really good point to basically end on, because what we actually haven't talked about is this whole ability. If you have a bad experience with a channel that isn't SMS, you can delete it. You can delete the app and remove it. And the same actually, I know we're talking primarily about messaging, but the same goes for the world of mobile payments. And if we're talking about direct carry billing, also known as charge to bill, many other things in different countries, if I had a bad experience and I'm subscribed to something that I didn't sign up to at all, and because of clickjacking or whatever it may be, then I'm going to say, hey, I'm not going to use direct carrier billing ever again. What's the point? I'm just going to stick to my credit card or other payments channels. So it's a very, very good point, the ability to delete. So everyone, I'd like to give all my panelists, my speakers here, a very, very big round of applause because they've done a terrific job. Thank you so much. Now, GTS would like to present a token of appreciation to all of you speakers, And thank you for your time and effort and coming forward when I asked for speakers. So, there we go. And first of all, from that,